active. Thanks for confirming. All right. So welcome. We have Miss Sharon and Jill with us tonight for the live class, but we have a lot of folks here that are listening to the recording for our paint class tonight. So thanks everyone for being here, whether you are on the live or you are joining the recording after. My name is Megan. If you're new to any of my classes, so great to have you. Tonight we are painting a lake sunset scene, which is going to be really pretty. I have uploaded the inspiration into the chat window for any of the live participants. And I have available, I will post the inspiration within the YouTube space so you can see what that is there too as you get started. So for any of my classes, some of you know, most of you know, if you've been a part of these before, you can use any paint supplies that you have on hand. Tonight I'm using acrylic paper. Yeah, I'm using acrylic paper. This is 9x12. This is just what I have in front of me tonight. Sometimes I paint on 9x12. Sometimes I paint on 11x14. Just use whatever you have at home. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy anything fancy to participate in these classes. Tonight I'm using an array of really fancy acrylic paints. I have a little bit of yellow colors. I have some blacks. I have some whites and blues and greens. So using these colors, and these are a lot of the primaries, I can mix and blend different tones, right? So this blue is, you know, a fairly royal blue, you know, maybe a little darker. If I want to lighten this, I just mix it with a little bit of white and I can control that tone. In the inspiration tonight, there's a teal. So I'll be mixing green and blue together with a little bit of white to create a teal. So you don't feel like you have to, when you join these classes, you need like a whole paint set. Just join with what you have. So we'll always get through that together. So here's the paints that I'm using. Those are all acrylic paints. I have an array of brushes. This is like a 1/2-inch brush. This is a kind of a rounded tip. Just have some that are big and small for you to kind of use the bigger ones for the large areas. And then some of these smaller detailed brushes for the clouds and for some of those grass that we'll put in the foreground. Okay. I like to have a paper plate or a palette to mix colors on. So I have a paper plate with me tonight, and I have a paper towel for any messes. So I have this right here next to me for the class. I also have a cup of water for rinsing my brushes. Now, don't mistake that for my water I'm drinking. So keep the water you're drinking away from your other one. I'm a lefty, so I should really have one on one side and one on the other. So do your diligence there. I do have a pencil. I'm probably not going to be using a pencil for tonight's class, but if you wanted to do any sketching, you could. All the elements are fairly straightforward. All right. If anyone has any questions, if anyone on the live here, Sharon or Jill, if you have any questions throughout tonight's class, feel free to post them in the chat window or feel free to unmute yourself. We like to keep things pretty casual here. But if anyone's watching the recording and you have questions, you're welcome to jump on the Patreon app and send me a message and I can help out. But if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you can always comment below this video on the YouTube channel and you can easily, I'll get a notification of your comment and I'll write you right back. Cool. So without further ado, we'll jump right in and we'll start painting the background, which will be super fun. I'm going to do a landscape orientation tonight just to mix it up. If you wanted to do a vertical portrait landscape, you could do that too. I'm just going to do something a little different tonight and do the landscape. The colors in the inspiration are teals and oranges, which I really think are quite pretty. But if you wanted to do any other different colors or bring in other colors, you're absolutely welcome to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is my brush is dry. I'm going to go ahead and stick it in my water cup just to kind of like get it nice and wet. But I'm going to do a dollop of blue. I might do 2 small dollops of blue on my plate. And it's not very much. It's about the size of my thumbnail. Like that's not very much at all. It's about the size of the cap. You can always add more paint to your plate if you want. Actually, we'll probably add a little bit more to this one. So I'm looking for a teal color and I have a green on hand. If you don't have a green, you can mix a green. The teal is basically green and blue mixed together. It's more blue though than, so I'm going to do blue and green mixed together. I'm putting those right near each other. And I'm just gonna get my little white container open too. And I'm just gonna grab a smaller brush that's clean. And I'm just gonna scoop a little bit. I'm gonna put some of the white on the plate. There's a little bit of white paint. And I'll keep this brush out. Maybe I'll use it for mixing. And I'm gonna close this container. Now, if there's any questions throughout class, you all know to feel free to ask. But I'm just gonna start mixing blue and green together. If you don't have green, just add a little bit of yellow to the blue. A little yellow to the blue will make it less green, right? So when you mix blue and yellow together, it will give you green. But if you basically need more yellow than blue when you make a traditional green. But if you want this bluish green teal color, just add a little bit of yellow to blue and you'll get more of a teal color. So this is pretty dark in color, but that's why we have our white handy. So I'm not going to apply the paint with this brush, but I'm finding a nice teal. So that's a nice dark teal color. It may not happen that quickly for you. We're all using different paints tonight. So I recognize that. All right, so I'm going to just leave this brush over here for right now. I'm going to get the brush in my water cup. Kind of wipe off some of the droplets. I don't want it to be dripping. And I'm just going to grab a dollop of white and mix it in with my teal to make it lighter. So I'm looking for like a lighter teal sky. I don't want a dark teal sky. I might take this brush and just throw it in my water cup and clean it off. I want to make a nice light teal, and you can kind of control that with the amount of white that you bring into this. So I always start with a little, mix it around, and then you can always grab more if you need to. It's pretty dark still. And I always try to keep my paint in one little spot. I don't want to spread it all the way around my picture. I try to kind of scoop it into the middle. There's lots of ways of playing with paint and keeping it together any way that you want. We all have our own ways of mixing and blending. With my dirty brush, I'm just going to grab a small dollop of this. And I did it on the side because I have plenty of clean white over here. So you can always get more, just being careful, really. And I can make this as dark or as light as the sky as I want it to be. It's totally up to you. I'm gonna need a lot more white to lighten this, I can tell you that right now. If I want to make it more yellowy, I can add a little more yellow to it to kind of brighten it a little bit. I'm just gonna kind of see how it goes. So just find a color that works for you. But I want to say thank you so much for joining. So glad that we're able to make this work tonight. All right, so it's getting a little lighter. I'm going to be a little bold, and I'm going to add a tiny touch of yellow to this. It's going to give it like a little bit of a lime green tinge. Just experimenting here. That's what art's all about, right? It's making it a little more green. It's okay. Still fairly dark. Maybe I'll use a little bit of water when I apply this to lighten it a little bit. So I might just kind of get going here. I'm going to try to get some of this paint off my brush. So I'm kind of just dampening it around to kind of get a little less kind of chunky. So there, I have just enough paint on this brush. You can see I have a tip that I can actually see. It's kind of like long and skinny right there. And that's what we can use for our horizon line. So again, for the inspiration tonight, you can do landscape or portrait. The sky for me, you can do a line straight across if you're doing portrait or landscape, or you can do the other way. I'm just going to do a line right in the middle because I'm going to have half sky, half land. So you can kind of pick and choose where you want your sky and where you want your land to be. And the top of the water is going to be all this like bluish green color. So I'm just going to dip my brush in a little bit of water and just move this around. And if I want this to be lighter, I can always make it lighter. Like it really should be lighter in my opinion. But I'm gonna come in and make it lighter. So I could use water to make it lighter. Or I could use white paint. So just go at your own speed. I'm going to paint the whole bottom for the water. So maybe I bring in a little bit of white paint. Look at this to just lighten it this way. Any way you want to fill in. See, I was a little lazy. I just brought in a little bit of white paint, but look at that. It's working pretty well. And I have a little water on my brush. And you can see how it's giving me a softer opacity of this green teal. That works. And you can see if I'm not going perfectly straight across, it's going to create some movement. I'm also painting on paper, so it's a little not perfect, but just paint all the way down to the bottom. This is the water area, and then we'll do the top after. So again, I'm alternating, dipping my brush in a little bit of water. And you kind of have to work a little quickly with acrylics because it dries so darn fast. So I'm keeping a single continuous brush stroke. And I'm getting some really fine gradients here because I'm literally dipping my brush in a little bit of white, even putting a little bit of this green on, and then just applying both together. Maybe going back and getting a little bit more water on my brush. See how my brush is wet? And then moving this paint around. So we're going to do just the bottom. We're going to do the same thing with the sky, but only the top half of the sky is going to be this color. The bottom half of the sky is going to be much lighter with yellows and oranges. And I love these colors. I love how the white and the water on my brush really helps soften this space pretty quickly. I mean, it looks like a deep turquoise, like water, body of water right now. It's not as light as the inspiration, but for me, that's okay. But that's where you can make those choices as an artist. And that's one of the things we talk about in these classes is you're in control over what colors you use. And I always talk about that to create that awareness that you can always make that choice of making something lighter or darker or changing, making or using a different color than me even. Those things are all okay. I'm going to have a nice clean line here at the top. I might use a different brush. Yeah, I'm going to use a different brush to have a nice clean horizon line. As straight as possible. My lines are never straight, let's be honest. Okay. I used to paint from the side and my lines were never straight. You both probably know that. Everything came out a little crooked when I was painting from the side. And tonight I'm painting in front of my canvas. I'm painting down, but so funny. It's better to paint it on. So that's fairly, hang on, this is a little not straight. You guys are probably looking at me like, Megan, this is not straight. It's because my canvas was tipped. So I'm going to try to do this a little more straight over here. There, that's a little bit better. Not bad. All right, so I'll call that fairly straight. I got a little bit of ocean rocking over here on the, it's hard to get a perfectly straight line. A little bit of ocean happening on the left, but it's all good. So some of you may be using a larger canvas tonight and maybe taking you a little longer. Some of you might be right on par with me. Just always take your time. In these classes, if you're watching the recording, you can always pause and pick up where you need to. But I'm just going to start doing the top portion. And I'm going to do long, smooth brush strokes for the sky. And I'm starting at the top and I'm using a little bit more water. I'm making a conscious effort to be a little bit lighter. Now, some of you may not want to use the water like I am. That's totally fine. You could always use your white paint to soften. But I'm going to be thoughtful about coming just halfway down. And with a little bit of water on my brush, I want to do a really soft teal to help with the transition. See this nice soft teal? We're going to be putting our yellows and oranges on top of this. See how that's really soft? It's really muted. And by doing a long continuous brush stroke, you're not going to have a ton, and just do a little bit of water on the brush, wiping off the bristles. It will really help smooth things out for you. Again, if you don't want to use water, you could just do another layer of paint on top. Acrylic dries really quickly, so. But I want you to try doing a soft transitional layer from one to another. And my color in person is much more vivid. This is on the screen, it looks like a bluish greenish gray. For me in person, it's more of a vivid teal. So I don't know what my color settings are right here, but it's more vivid in person, but you get the deal here about the lightness and the darkness. And then I just want you to fill in this sky, fill in your bottom as you wish. And then try to create that transitional layer that's softer. And again, you could do that with white paint. You could do that with water. But I am keeping my brush on the canvas from one side to the other. And I'm doing a nice smooth continuous brush stroke. And if I feel like I need to add a little bit more pigment, guess what? Acrylic dries really fast. I can come in and make it a little darker if I want to make it darker. No big deal. And I can always come in and add more after if I want, which is another nice thing. So I'm not really pressured to do one thing or another. Now, for tonight's inspiration, like many of our inspirations, we're going to start in the background. So the background elements, and then we're going to work our way to the foreground. So you're going to see a lot of elements on this inspiration, like a lighter teal water reflection and white clouds in the sky and a sun on top of the background. We're going to do all that as a step 2. But our first phase is just filling in the background first. So I'll give you another minute or two. Sharon's still working away. I'll give her a few minutes here. Take your time. I'm just going to let mine dry. I'm going to let it dry. We'll be adding different layers of clouds. And I have a lot of water going on here. I could have left more room for the sky. It's just about where you put that horizon line, which is totally fine. And I kept some white space. So the bottom half of our sky, we're going to be doing a blood orange color, and then I'll be doing a yellow. I could start with the yellow and then fade down to the blood orange. We'll probably do that. We'll probably start with the yellow just because it's a lighter tone. It's easier to manage versus putting that orange on the horizon. And then let a little bit of yellow clouds in the sky too. So our bottom water is painted. I'll slowly transition us to the yellow. This is a medium yellow that I'm using. There's no rush here, so if you need to keep working on one thing or another, feel free. I have a little dot of yellow right here. This is the medium yellow. It's still it's pretty bright. If you wanted to use like a little ochre mixed, if you have ochre, yellow ochre, you can kind of mix the two together to kind of mute it into like a mustard kind of color. That's a little bit of ochre. The ochre is like kind of like a dark sunflower color. Okay, and I'm going to clean my brushes really well. And I'm going to use that same big brush. If you have another brush that you want to use, just grab another brush, no big deal. I always like to use my paper towel to see how clean my brush is. Look at that, not very clean. I have some blue juice over here that I'm not going to drink. It won't mess with your colors at all, I promise. Sometimes people think that the colored water is going to taint the color of the next paint, but it's usually fine. So I have a brush that's clean, and I'm going to mix these two colors together and see what I get. It's like a mystery. If I didn't clean all the green off of this brush, it would really taint the yellow. So just make sure your brushes are clean as you transition from one color to another. This is turning into like a mustard color, which I'm like, not. I think it's fine. This is like a true, it's like actually a little darker mustard, but it's a nice color. It's going to look just fine. So I'm just going to use this just to see how it goes. And this is in the midsection. So I'm gonna hold my brush, since I have a fairly narrow sky, I'm gonna hold my brush on the more flat side. So with these bit brushes, I could hold it on the wide angle or I could hold it on the more narrow side. So when you hear I'm saying on the narrow side or on the flat side, I'm just gonna do this. Excuse me. And I'm giving myself a little bit of a guide of like where I want to put this color. So below this, where the white is, I'm going to put orange. And I'm going to take a little bit of water on my brush, kind of clean some of this paint off. And I'm going to use my brush to blend this in. So I'm going to do some soft yellow below. That's going to blend into the orange. And I'm going to do some soft brush strokes above. That's just going to softly fade up. So it can kind of be a little more dense in areas. This is why I like using water, because you can see there's some darker spots, which is great. But you can really manage how much of this yellow is being applied and where. If anybody wants to get a little fancy, I'll show you another trick on how to bring your yellow into your upper part of your sky. You can bring some of this yellow all the way down to the bottom. And if you want this to be just your sky, you could totally have that be just your sky. If anybody wants to do anything a little fancy with your yellow, you can take a little bit of your yellow, put a little bit of water with it. I'm just using a smaller brush and kind of making a little bit of a water wash. And you can bring your yellow up in different ways. So you can kind of add in some like kind of faux clouds coming in here, some like long and skinny clouds. I'm just doing some left-right kind of swishing to bring in some clouds to the sky, and with this yellow, kind of like golden clouds. Use your imagination. So there's some clouds, and maybe they go further across. Maybe you bring it over a little bit. Think long and skinny, long and lean. And you can make these clouds as dark or as light as you wish. Kind of making them a little piecey. You can see they're a little darker down here on the bottom. And I'm just using this small brush, and I have a little bit of water on it. And you can add in a little bit more paint in certain areas. It's just about experimenting. If you don't want to add these clouds, you do not have to. But that's just a little bit of like a golden clouds kind of coming in. And I just did them from the right. If you want to kind of drift them over to the left a little bit, you can. It's totally up to you. I'm not going to do any more than that though. You can see it took the yellow from the sky and brought it to the top, which is really quite pretty. And this is wet, as you can see. So wherever you see that shine, that means it's wet, but it's gonna dry pretty quickly here. So I'm pretty much done with the yellow there. We're gonna I have yellow still on my plate. We're gonna come back to that for some of the reflection, but I'm gonna bring in a little bit of orange or blood orange. My cat Kokomo just came in to say hello. I don't know if you can hear them meowing. So curious, kitties. Sharon, you know nothing about that. I'm sure Jill has pets too. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of my red. I have this is crimson red. It's a little darker. I like to call this like my dark red barn red. It's not like a bright red cherry red. It's more of a little darker tone. So I have a little tiny dollop of this red. I'm going to use this to make a blood orange. If you wanted to do a regular orange, you could do a regular orange. To make orange is yellow and red mixed together. It is like 75% yellow, and a touch of red will actually give you like orange. I'm going to go a little more red, so it's a little bit more blood orange. So just kind of pick and choose what you want to do. I'm using a smaller brush because I don't have a ton of space down here. So if you want to use a bigger brush, you can. But I'm just going to take a little bit of my yellow right here, and I'm just going to bring in a little bit of red, and I'm just going to find the right color that I'm looking for tonight. This is more of a darker orange. So if I want this to be a little more red and lighter, I can add a little more red to it, but then I can add a little bit of white to lighten it. So it's just about playing with the colors that you have. So I added a little bit more red and I added a little bit of white to brighten it. And that for me looks great. I'm going to make enough of it so I don't run out of it. We've all done that in these classes about making custom paint colors and not having enough. I don't need too much, but I want to make sure I don't run out. But find a color that you like. I might make it a little lighter. Mixing it well. Always take the time to find the colors that you're looking for. I'm trying to keep it all in one spot. This is not a blood orange color. It's like a, I don't even know. It's like a, I don't want to say a dark peach, but I guess it's like a light blood orange color. Maybe that's even a thing. So I'm just gonna, I want to make enough of it. So I'm just bringing in a little more red, a little more yellow, so I don't run out of this. And that should be enough. I just need some to go on the top of that horizon line and then in the water reflection. So for me, this should be enough. And I'm kind of blotting off some of the paint. So I don't need too much paint to be on this. And then I'm going to come in above my horizon line. And I'm just going to do a nice clean line first on my horizon line. And I'm using that narrow edge of the brush. And for me, this is pretty dark, but it's okay. I can always lighten it, right? It's okay to make changes along the way. I'm going nice and slow. So there's a very uneven line. That's okay. I'm gonna take a little bit of white paint on my brush and I'm gonna make a little bit lighter color. And I'm just gonna see what this looks like. Now I don't have a lot of space to work with here, so I'm being really careful about how much I want to bring in and why. So I'm going to do a little bit more of like this full pigment, and then I'm going to use water and I'm going to soften it up into the yellow. So I'm going to clean my brush off and I'm just going to then use water on my brush while this is wet. And I'm just going to slowly start to soften this and just slowly bring it up. I'm kind of fluffing it up into the yellow. And this is just a fun technique. Blending takes a lot of practice. So using water versus the paint pigments, it's a little easier. You can do paint pigment blending, which is just basically finding like a secondary color to help blend one into another. And that is not a formal art term. That is a Meganism. A lot of Meganisms in these classes, which I'm sure you all know. But I'm just softening this, and I'm using a really light hand with a little water, and I'm softening this, my blood orange into this yellow. And I'm deciding how much I want to add and where. So for me, I don't want to lose my yellow. So I'm really staying about half and half with these colors. And that's me looking at this as a mindful artist, just making choices. So as you look at yours, I want you to evaluate how much yellow do I have? How high up do I want to bring this orange or this blood orange? For me, I'm happy with that. It's just enough of that darker glow at that horizon line. So take your time with those colors. I have some funky water blending that like happened in here. It's like a happy little accident here with my water. And we're going to be using the yellow and the red for the water reflection, but we're going to be doing a lighter teal down here first. So just once you're done with the sky, or if you're still working on the sky, just let the sky dry. I'll wait for everybody to be done the sky before we shift down to the water. So take your time. I'm working on a really small canvas tonight, so I'm kind of going a little fast. So I want to make sure that we pause and you take your time doing what you need to do in that regard. but I'm happy, and I'm also happy with what I have right now, which is many of you probably are still working on those details. So take your time. I'm going to let mine dry and I'm going to think about this or that. Um, let's see here. Maybe I'll play with my clouds a little bit. I'd be adding white clouds together after. We'll do that together as a group. But I'm just going to add a little bit of a darker touch to some of the tops of these clouds as a little bit of an extra detail as everyone is working on your own inspirations. If there's any questions from our live members, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, keep doing what you're doing. I'm excited. Halfway through the class, we'll stop and do a pause. We'll do a little bit of a reflection if folks want to share their work. The members of our painting community, we always get inspired from seeing what you do and how you do it. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a showcase this summer where folks, I would love for you to share your work on some of your favorites so everybody can see how everyone else is progressing and some of their favorites to share. So I think that'll be a fun thing to do. So I just added a little bit more there. And then Sharon, you can give me a thumbs up when you are done your top, just for check. And then Miss Jill, let me know if you need more time. You can use the chat window. Oh, she has a question here. I'm sorry. What colors did you put on top of your clouds? I just used the mustard color. So I painted my clouds with this yellow, but I used water, so they went on a little bit lighter. Jill, if you want to, if you use like a solid pigment like color to paint your clouds, mix a little bit of white, and you could do a lighter tone on the top. That would just brighten the tops of the clouds like the sun is coming through. So you could just do a softer touch. I just did like a darker pigment of the same color to make the tops just stand out a little bit. And for me, it looks like mustard, like out of the refrigerator color in person. But then once folks are ready, we're going to create a lighter green for some water reflection. So we're going to let the whole top dry. We'll be adding a sun and white clouds to the top shortly. And then we're going to let the top dry first, but we're going to come back down to the water and we're going to add our lighter teal water reflection next. So I will slowly transition us to that. Don't forget to stretch your arms, stretch your legs, neck to the left and to the right. Check our posture. My posture is shot right now, having a 5-week-old baby. My body just hurts. Imagine that. All right. So I'm going to clean my brushes really well and just set myself up for making a new color here, well, secondary color. So I still have a little bit of white on my plate and we're making a lighter teal. So I'm going to take a little scoop of this teal and I'm going to put it over here. And I'm going to take a scoop of my white and I'm going to make a lighter color. And I want it to be lighter than this one. So I might have to use like quite a bit. But this is going to help with our water reflection. And we'll be putting the yellow and the red, a little bit of those colors in there too. I want it to stand out enough. And the inspiration, it's pretty bold of a lighter color. So you can decide how light you want to go. I like that I have them next to each other though, so you can eyeball it if it's going to be light enough or not as you're mixing. You don't need a ton of this. This is quite a bit. This is probably over a quarter size of paint. You don't need that much unless you have a really large canvas. Now I could start with this. Again, a little bit of paint management. You don't need too much paint on your brush. So I'm kind of flipping my brush and kind of dabbing just to kind of get some of that paint off because I don't need a ton of it. And what we're going to do is you're going to find the center and I'm going to put a sun in the center of mine. So what we're doing is reflection from the sun on the water. If you wanted to do your sun off center, which, hey, I could do that. I could be funky tonight and do that if I wanted to. Maybe I will. My sun is going to go maybe go over here tonight just to be different. My reflection is going to come, maybe I could keep my finger here and my reflection is going to be, I'm doing long and skinny brush strokes. And I'm doing some shorter ones and some longer ones. So look, this is not light enough, right? This is why you have to start somewhere and make changes. So I'm just going to make it a little lighter. Again, I'm just going to find the center of like where I'm going to put my sun, which is at the top. And I'm using like a small flat tip brush, and I'm holding my brush on the side. If you wanted to use a different brush to do this, use any brush that you have. But you can see I'm leaving a little bit of spacing in between. And it's gonna, you can get a little bit more narrow as you go down, or you could just bring this down all the way, the same like width. So it's totally up to you. If you want to come in and add some like lighter colors, like lighter than this, you can. But again, I know I'm gonna put, I could even do a dot, like a small dot right here. Like that's where I'm gonna put my sun. I just did a small dot to show you. And this is kind of blending in. So for me, I might grab a little bit more white paint. I just have, I'm using a really light hand. And I'm kind of creating some like wave texture, you know, just like some line like texture, like there's actually like little waves. Doing some longer and some shorter. I can still see some of the watercolor. So put a little bit of water on your brush if you wanted to. Just having fun. Now we're going to be putting a lot of tall grass on top of this. So this is just some detail that's going to be in the distance. So you can bring this all the way down if you wanted to. No big deal. And a little bit of water on your brush to help move the paint around. I'm just doing lots of thin little layers. You can go do as much or as little as you wish. I'm just kind of working my way up and working my way down until I'm happy with it. Bring the lines over a little bit if you want. For me, I did mine off-centered, right? So you can kind of go over to the left or to the right as much or as little as you want. Kind of bring those wave marks over. Or reflection, rather. I did mine off-center just to do something different tonight. And if I wanted to make this lighter, I could, but for me in person, I can see it. I could come in with a little bit of extra like lighter color and just slowly just do a few really light waves or reflections. And you see I have nice thin brush strokes. Again, that's where you just kind of figure out what brush you want to use. And we're going to add some of that orange and that red in here as well. It might be a little scary. So if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but I believe in you. But just get these ones in first. But it's coming out quite pretty. And I'm just doing some layers here and there. It's very simple. Bring some of these over if you wanted to. And you can decide how much or how little you want. Because we are going to put some of those cattails on top. So we're not going to spend too much time here, but I wanted to give you some options. Okay, so I have like a subtle reflection. It's not like crazy bold, but good. All right, so I'm going to let that dry. Now we want this to dry entirely before we put the oranges and the reds on here. So if you wanted to go up and put in your, we can go back up to the top. We can put in our sun. I need a little bit more white paint. Okay, I'm going to clean up my brush. And I'm gonna make, you can do a white sun, you can do like a light yellow sun. So I just did some more white paint here. I'm just gonna grab a small dollop of yellow and I'm just gonna make it into like a really light yellow over here. And I'm gonna do a really tiny sun. I'm using way too big of a brush for awareness. Don't use a big brush like I am. I'm gonna kind of spin it. And if you want it to be setting, you can have it be setting. I'm kind of circulating mine. It's not bad. I'm gonna get a smaller brush to fix it. So I did yellow, white, and a little bit of yellow to make this color. So I'm doing a brighter sun. And then I'm just gonna do some really subtle, like watery. I'm adding a little water to my plate. I'll show you. I'm gonna do some glow around the sun. So I have some water here mixed with my light yellow. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of aura. So I'm gonna do, I use my pinky to stabilize my hand. And with a small brush with the tip on it, you can do a little bit of like an aura, like around your sun. Now, if this is too many lines for you, what you could do is you could take a corner of a paper towel while it's wet. You can either dab it. So watch this. You can just dab it a little bit to soften the paint. If you don't like it, you can kind of like wipe it off. I'm just softening it a little bit. I'm cleaning up my brush. Again, I might make it a little watery and like just kind of smudge it around a little bit to give it like a softer aura. Just have fun with what you want to do here. The shape of my sun is terrible. I'll fix it. It's just about like letting it dry, doing a first coat, and then you can go back in and fix things. And then if you wanted to do, go back in and do some more lines for this aura, you could. I'm not sure what I want to do for my sun yet, so I'm just kind of playing around, to be honest. And if you don't like something, again, corner of paper towel, just come in and blot it up, grab a little water. I like that it has a little bit of a glow. You can see some of the lines. You can kind of smudge some of it out and up too. Like you can do some smudging here. Like smudge to the left, smudge to the right. This is a really good example of just like experimenting because there's not a ton of risk. So I'm just being really playful as an artist, just to show you that it's okay to be playful. Sometimes we have this like guard up that we have to do things a certain way when we paint. And it's just like so not true. Like we're here to have fun, we're here to relax. I am like not being judgy of what I'm doing. I'm just being in the moment with you all. And that's just what I always will encourage you to do. Like show up to be yourself. No one is here to judge you. We're here just to have a good time. Imagine that. So I have like some fun kind of glowing going on. It's not all the way down to the horizon line, but and I do want it to be down to the horizon line. So I'm just adding in a little bit of yellow paint just to make sure it's coming all the way down to the horizon line. I'm just going to smudge this upwards. Just a little bit of a detail to make sure it like looks real. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like a little bit of a rainbow. All right, and then you can add in, or if you have any red, you can add in some kind of small thin like clouds. Like they're in the distance, really far away. With this lighter yellow, you can kind of tuck those in. So I'm just going to tuck in a few clouds in the distance here. So there's just a few clouds. I'm just going to tuck in a couple over here. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Smudge some of this. Okay to play, always. All right, so there's a few clouds right there. And then we can add some white clouds as well to the sky for consideration. So I am going to find a clean brush. I'll use the one I was using for the yellow. I'm just doing a nice clean brush, and I'm just going to grab some white paint. And I'm going to add in some white clouds, kind of between the sun and these yellow ones. And I'm going to just do them on the outskirts. So one way of doing clouds is you can kind of do a line across, and then you can kind of add some cloud-like structure on top, like that, like the cumulus fluffiness on top. And you can kind of, you can have that round structure, that flat structure on the bottom. The tops of the clouds are going to be a little lighter. So if you wanted to do that, you could. So water's your friend here. When you paint clouds, we do lots of clouds in these classes, but you can use a little water or a lighter, like not a ton of paint as you fill these in. And then there's ways of kind of making the clouds stand out a little bit. So I'm just bringing in a few white clouds. Just, I'm keeping it really simple tonight. You can make the bottom of the cloud kind of come up a little higher if you want. We're going to be putting grass on top of this, these, you know, this whole picture. So these clouds are really just an accent detail. And you can fill the clouds in to be really rich and white if you want to, or you can leave them soft in color with less pigment. So it's totally up to you on how you want to fill in the clouds. Just experiment with that a little bit. There's a, there, I'll leave that up. It's, I had a little bit of glare there. You can see my clouds. There's a little bit of a glare because they're wet. Let me just block it there for a minute. So you can see I have just different kind of colors kind of coming in. Just, these are all whites, but just more white paint, more water. I'm just being playful on how I fill them in. So I'm doing a little bit here. The clouds and the inspiration kind of come halfway. So if you wanted to bring these clouds halfway, you know, you can. I'll bring this one halfway. Maybe I'll add another little white cloud here. It's totally up to you. Do as much or as little as you want here. I'm here just to offer different ways of doing things, but always just kind of follow your intuition on how you want to stylize your own art. And then I'm just gonna do a little bit of a white cloud over on the other side just to balance it out. So I'm just gonna do a little cloud over here, kind of coming across. A little bit of a jet stream. Use your imagination. I'm just doing lines that look like clouds. And keep it as simple as that. And you can just let your clouds dry. I'm going to come back in and fix some of these yellow clouds. They don't look that great to me, so I'm just going to come in and fix some of these. I think they need to be just a little bit bigger, bolder. So these are all details. Like, you don't have to do all of this. I am here just to kind of show you all the things you could choose to do if you wanted to. So I want you to be happy with this part of class. I want you to be happy with the top portion. I'm going to come in and make my sun a little bit bolder. I wiped all my aura away on my sun, which is okay. Fine. I think I need, let's see, let's try that aura again. I went a little crazy. It's okay. I'm not afraid to try it. That's the most important thing. There, I'm gonna keep it fun and whimsical. This is like a lot of like aura glowing situation happening. It's okay. I'm gonna embrace my idea tonight. And I'm gonna put a little bit of extra white paint in the middle of the sun. And then we'll switch down. Once you're done with your background and you're happy, we'll switch down. We'll do our reflection on the water. A little bit of white paint in the sun will make it brighter, make it really shine. Jill must have had to drop off. No worries. And then I'm gonna, once you're working on your clouds and stuff, you can shift down to the bottom when you wish. We're just gonna do this blood orange reflection underneath the sun. And if you're not here yet, don't worry. It's gonna be really small and narrow underneath the sun. And then it can just get a little wider. But it doesn't have to be, you know, wider the whole way. So you can come in, I'm just using a few brush strokes here and there, and I'm just creating a little bit of a patchy reflection. I'm not using all solid lines. I'm keeping it fairly soft. So you can kind of go shorter lines and longer lines. It's totally up to you. I don't typically do reflections like this, so I'm just being really open to how I'm applying the paint. However you want to apply your reflection on this water, you just go for it. I'm gonna do this blood orange, orange color, and then I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna do it all the way down. I'll probably tailor it off right around here, so it's a little bit more narrow. And I have a narrow end point. I'm just doing soft, gentle sweeps for this. And just kind of lean back and just texturize this water. Maybe softening some of these edges of where the red or the orange kind of blends in. I added a little bit more of this color than the inspiration, but that's just what I wanted to do tonight. So just know it's always okay to do something a little different if you want to. I'm gonna let that dry before I add the yellow. But for me, I was just being really playful about like how and where to add it. I might add a little bit extra here along the top of the, where the water meets the sky. So I'm gonna let that dry because I'm gonna brighten it with a little bit of the yellow after. Sharon, how's this going for you so far?
Going well, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Super fun colors, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not usually an orange fan, but I really like working with sunset themes like this.
Vibrant. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll just take our time. We have a lot of basic objects right now. So tonight's class, we could easily, you know, spend an hour or 2 hours or even 3 hours on all these details. So I'll try to keep us right in a happy medium of an hour and a half. So we'll end in about 30 minutes, which is perfect timing because it will really allow us to just fine tune our clouds and fine tune the water reflection and add our grass. Our grass and our birds are going to be our final step. So based on the size of your canvas, the grass may take a little longer, right? So there's going to be lots of grass blades. We're going to have little wispies, and the grass is going to be black. If you wanted to use like a dark green, you could use a dark green. It's just going to be a much darker contrasting color to stand out for us, like a shade, like a shadow, or a silhouette rather. So go at your own pace, work on whatever you wish here. I did add some of this red blood orange reflection here. If you wanted to add any shading to your clouds, I can show you a little bit of a shading technique to the white clouds. Maybe I come in and I make the tops of the clouds a little bit lighter first. I always love coming in with the second coat and just going along the top ridge of the clouds and just making them a little bit lighter. And add in some more texture if you wish. You could blend this in if you wanted to. So it's not just a line. It makes the bottom of the cloud look a little more shaded when the top is a little bit brighter, but I'll show you a way of shading the bottom of the clouds too. So we're doing great for time. I always love showing you different tips and techniques since as you do our classes. So I'm just adding a couple of fun kind of swirlies into the clouds too, just because, hey, why not? This is like a very California vibe going on tonight, Sharon, for me. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's all this warm weather, who knows? But I'm just using a small brush and playing with the clouds where I want to add darkness and lightness. But I'm doing this like a little bit of the white highlighting detail first. And then I'll show you a little bit of a shading technique, but let's do one thing at a time. And everybody, again, you each get to pick and choose what's important to you with regards to details. You may not want to do extra cloud detail like I am right now. That's totally fine. Feel free to work on whatever details are most relevant for you. So there's just some fun cloud detail. I think I'm ready to put a little bit of the yellow to support and to continue the brightness and the reflection of down into the sun. So I'm going to take some of this light yellow again. And you can make it as bright or as light as you want. But I'm just going to put it in the middle area of some of this red. So with a small tip on the brush. I'm just going to do a little bit of kind of highlighting. Wherever I have this red, I'm just doing a gentle, I don't want to say a reflection on top of that shape, but I'm going to be playful here with how this shows up. So I'm just using the tip of the brush and I'm kind of outlining the top of some of these red shapes just to see how that does with the glow from the sun. So with a little bit of the yellow, you can do a little bit of, and I'm keeping it fairly in the center. There we go. You can decide how much of this yellow to put in. And if you don't want to do it just on the tops, if you want to add more yellow on the water and in between, you can too. So if I want to add a little bit of extra yellow, it's kind of cresting and creating kind of like a new little wave, I could do that. This is where you want to, we become friends with our brushes and we get to know how they work for us, right? It's so funny. We talk about the more we get to know our brushes in these classes, the more control we have over kind of implementing what we want in some cases. I have a lot of pieces here. In the inspiration, it's all very much solid. Some of you may have just done a lot of solid colors. So I'm doing a few of these, highlighting the tops of some of these pieces, but I'm also just doing some extra yellow here and there. You could put a little bit of water on the tip of your brush. You could spin your brush to have a nice fine point. Again, you can use the corner of a paper towel if you need to blot or change something. You can add as much or as little of this glow as you wish. But lean back in your chair and kind of check with yourself along the way. I'm using a really light hand. I'm holding my brush very in a dainty way right now with like 2 fingers. And this is kind of holding the top. And I'm just dancing softly on tops of these little red specks that I've added here and there. And anywhere that I might want to add a little bit of extra glow, I'm just doing a little bit of an extra yellow line. So just pick and choose what's relevant for you again. I love this. It's very different. This style, and the color is really quite vibrant and puts in. If I could change the lighting, I will. It's really quite pretty and fun. So do as much or as little as you wish. As an artist, you also need to kind of like check yourself along the way. And I like to talk about it because I don't want you to overdo it. So it's like saying, okay, am I done? Megan, should I put the brush down? Okay, Megan, put the brush down, kind of thing. The other thing is if you wanted to add more contrast of the darker water to the painting, you could. So for me, I could have a little bit more contrast. So I might tuck in a little bit more of like the darker green in some areas to add more darker contrast. So you may notice like you might want to add in a few kind of like more darker waves or lighter waves. You can do that. So just make some of those choices as an artist. I have some of this dark teal or this, regular green that I had. I'm gonna dip my brush in a little bit of water. I'm just tucking these in because a little more contrast will really make this pop, in my opinion. So I'm just taking my time. This is water, there is movement. So you can see what that did, just added a little bit more. Yours you may be happy with. Again, this is just a point for you to just reflect on what you have and make adjustments to your water and to your sky before we move to our cattails and our long grass next. So in about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll switch to our cattails, switch to our long grass, our silhouetted items that are in the foreground. All this that we're painting now is all in the background. Again, a little water on your brush. And this is one of the best parts of these classes, is holding the space for you to do you. With a lot of paint classes, you may feel obligated to do things one way or another based on the instructor, based on your notion of what's required, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And I always like to encourage you to just follow your gut on what you want to do. It doesn't have to be the same as me. So if you think all these lines are crazy, that's okay. But I like it. And this is about you and taking this time for yourself to wind down and recharge. And again, take as much time as you need For anyone watching the recording, you can pause the video. If you want to spend a full hour to play with your water feature, you can do that. If you want to spend more time in the sky, feel free. The final step of tonight's class is this long black kind of darker grass in the foreground. You want to make sure you're happy with the sky and happy with the water before you move on to that final step. So if you need to take more time to do that, feel free. But you can also pause and, walk away and come back and reflect on kind of what you have and say, oh, I'm missing something on the left. I think I need another wave over there, or I need to fix the cloud. Like these things that will all come to you. They will all come to you along the way. Mine's fairly abstract tonight with my lines. But for me, it's an impressionistic piece where I can see the water moving and I can see the sun reflecting down. The colors from the sky are being brought down to the water, and the water is similar colors to the sky, but they're both very different entities, which is kind of nice. So what I'm going to do is I'll slowly transition us to doing the grass. I'm going to try to wrap tonight's class up in the next 15 minutes, just due to family obligations that I have. So I'm just going to rinse my brushes and I'm going to decide what darker color that I want to use for my grass. And I'm going to use I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to use the same brush that I used for the water. Something with a long tip that you can do some nice long kind of grass blades in the foreground. So I have a little bit of black here. I have some dark green left over. I'll probably just put some black into the dark green just to use this paint. You could do dark blue, you could just do black, you could totally choose. But I'm just gonna put some black paint right here within this dark green paint, just to use what we have here. And I'm just gonna mix this. I just dumped it right in. I'm just gonna mix this around. It's gonna just turn black basically, but it's kind of good to kind of use what you have. So, and if you want to use just black, you can use just black. If you wanted to use a darker color like this is kind of turning into a darker grayish green, which is fine. I'll use this. And if I wanted to make it darker, I can go on with some black paint. So it's no big deal. I'm going to start with this, and if I want to make it darker, I certainly can. So I'll give everybody a minute to mix. I'm going to add a little bit more black. We'll give everybody a minute to mix the paint. Actually, it should be dark enough. I'll roll with it here. I'll give everybody a minute to mix the paint color that you want for the tall grass in the foreground. And we'll talk about placement and we'll talk about height of the grass. So we don't want to cover everything that we just painted. That would be such a sad, sad story. So I'm going to be thoughtful, right? So I went off center with my son, which means I can think about where I want to put it in there's a couple tall grass blades. So we'll do those first. We'll get a little bit wispy. One of the things as you're choosing what brush to use a brush that has a nice fine tip on it, that has long bristles so that you could do a nice clean grass blade. The smaller the brush, the better. The bigger the brush you have, the bigger the grass blades would be. You can have a bigger brush, it's fine. You could pick and choose. The brush I'm using is a number 2. I'm gonna do my grass blades. I think I'm still gonna do them. Let me see. I don't know. I think I still might do them over here and then just do some other ones. I think I'm gonna have like the focus of the painting be on the right side tonight, which is a little different, but I'm gonna start at the bottom. So I'm kind of flipping my hand around and I'm gonna flip and I'm gonna do a grass blade up. And it's just gonna come up and over. It's gonna have a little bit of a bend to it. And I tried doing it in one swoop, it didn't work. It's okay. And then I'm tried to be a little wispy and I'm just gonna kind of create a little bit of wispiness on the underside. Just on the underside of this, and they can be a little wispy. I'm using the bristles of the brush to make it a little wispy to the eye. And it can be just soft. A little less paint on the brush will give it that wispy look. Blowing in the wind. So I'm just gonna use my brush and I'm just gonna try to make this nice and clean of a line as possible. I'm kind of going back down. And I'm trying to keep it thin. It's not always easy to do. And I'm not using the smallest brush in the world. I'm using kind of like a smaller brush, not the smallest brush. But one of the things you can do to manage the amount of paint on your brush or how thick that comes out is you can kind of spin your brush on your plate and you can kind of do a little paint management. So it's not too goopy on your brush. We're going to give this is going to be my longest thing blowing in the wind. I'm going to do another one and this is going to kind of just cross into it. And I'm just doing another smaller one. It kind of came up a little straighter on the bottom, which is fine. And I'm just gonna give this, it's gonna be a little shorter. I did it on the inside of this. You can do whatever placements you want, but the wispies are just on the bottom side. Like they're blowing in the wind. It's windy by the lake. And I get those wispies by not having a ton of paint on the tip of the brush. That's my trick. So I kind of have a long one. I have one that's underneath it. It's a little shorter. And I'm gonna have one that's gonna come straight up. No, you can do any objects here in the foreground. I'm just keeping this grass. So those are going to be some of the tallest ones that I have. So we're going to rinse and repeat. We're tight on time here, so I'm just going to kind of buzz along. So I'm just going to, the next ones I'm doing are not going to be too high. I'm going to kind of rotate from the left to the right. I'm going to change the angle. And I'm just going to go, I don't want to say go a little crazy, but we're going to add some grass down here. So I'm going to start at the bottom and flick up. And you can fill this in. We're going to have lots of grass blades. So don't hesitate to really kind of go for it. I'm kind of crisscrossing. I'm doing a little bit of a bend to the left, a little bend to the right. They don't have to be tall. You can have some shorter ones. You want to do a darker line kind of at the bottom. Kind of ground some of this. You could do a little bit of like a foreground. Like you can do a little bit, like sometimes we do like rocks on the bottom, but you can kind of ground this, like there's a log down here or something. But you want to keep, you could first keep your grass a little low, figure out how high you want to bring it up. That's important. So I'm just adding in a bunch of grass first, and then I'll add those wispies to some of these. So I'm doing high grass blades, low grass blades. You can see what it looks like by having a little bit of a grounding the bottom. For me, that looks really natural. It also kind of shows that there's land in front of you, right? I'll add some wispies to some of these, like little characteristics. Little wispies, little buds, some of these. But take your time, don't feel rushed here. Always. Do as much or as little as you wish. I'm trying to stay as low as possible so I don't come up into my whole sky. I want to be able to see the sun. I'm going from the bottom up because it will give me that small tail, that small top. And then you can decide, I have a lot of like wind, a lot of movement happening here, which is kind of neat. You can look at the inspiration. You can add as many little wispies that you want. I'm just kind of picking a few of these to add a little bit of this extra detail too. But take your time, don't feel rushed at this step. You can add in as much texture as you want to help transition your eye. I'm doing some soft grass, just kind of tucked in. Soft, gentle swiping, kind of in between some of these other grass blades, just to kind of round. See, I'm filling it in a little bit here versus over here. It's more open in between these grass blades. I'm just doing some gentle wispies just to kind of fill in between some of these grass blades, which for me, that just kind of helps solidify everything. And then over here, I'll do some of these just coming off. But lean back, reflect on where you're at, and you'll figure out visually what you want to add and where. Heights, the angles. And then just check yourself, hey, do I need to add any more? Am I done, right? Or which of these want to have a little bit of that, those wispies, those little things coming off the tops, those little grains, those little buds. You can easily do flowers, right? I'm just doing a little, you can do texture on any of the tops of these. You can do as much or as little of that top texture as you wish. I'm just tucking in, I like a little bit here and there. For me, that's what I wanted to do. So I'm just gonna kind of follow my intuition to get everything to match visually. For me, it's all about visual balance of me just feeling content and happy with what elements I'm putting on. And if there's anything else I want to add and wear, that's really what I look for whenever I'm painting, whether it's in these classes or by myself. Am I happy the way I filled the grass in the foreground? Are there any weird gaps that I should add something else? You may be inspired to add like a log or a bigger tree or whatever. Those are all your choices. I have a lot of like wispies happening. If you could also add just like some more firm, you could add more firm plants in here if you wanted to. More firm elements. Also in the inspiration, there's no like rounding line like I added. It's just the grass is kind of coming, the water is coming between the grass. So it's up to you if you wanted to add that grounding line or not. I personally wanted to. So those are just some choices you can make along the way here. So again, if you have any questions about any of these details, just take your time with all the finishing touches. Many times after these classes, I spend a little bit of extra time, maybe a separate day, to just reflect on what I've done and just make tweaks. Like it's okay to pick, like not finish your art in this sitting. We have about 5 minutes left. Keep on working. I will add a little bit of a shadow to the underside of the clouds just to show you. I'm mixing like a grayish green You could use a darker grayish color on the underside of these clouds just to add a little shadow. I'm just using a thin line. It makes them look a little more real with a little bit of shading on the underside of these clouds. So this is just like this is a grayish green color. And using a little water will help kind of blend it in. And I'm kind of going around the grass. You can use your finger to smudge it in if you wanted to. You could just use your paintbrush to kind of dance along the bottom. Lots of possibilities here. Anything you paint that you don't like, you can always bring that white back out to brighten. There's a little bit of that. So this is where you just play with any of your finishing touches. Sharon, what did you think about tonight's inspiration? I'm super excited to see your work.
Really liked it. I like the flowy sort of water
Yeah,
scenes.
totally. Yeah, so for anyone that's participating either in the live or on the recording, within the Patreon chat there, sorry, the Patreon mobile app, you can upload a photo of your work in the Patreon app, and it's always so much fun to see everybody's work. So Sharon, no obligation to show it right now, but we would love to see your artwork when you're ready to share it.
I can show you. I did a solstice mandala earlier too. Today's been an art day.
Ooh, oh, that's awesome. You should post it into the chat so we can all see it.
Okay. Oops, hang on. I gotta fix.
Yeah, don't do your thing. I'm playing around with the top sides of these clouds here.
I just got black in my water accidentally.
Oh, really? So I'm going to
Okay.
go ahead and pause the video. For anyone that's watching the recording, feel free to, I'll unpin myself so everybody can see yours too. Ooh, so pretty. Nice job. I
Thank you.
love your water. Your water came out really cool. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, for anyone that's watching the recording, please be sure to follow up with any questions. Again, we always love seeing your artwork. And I'll be posting this for Sharon. If you need any access to the recording, we'll be posting it onto our YouTube channel soon. And if you have not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, it's a great way to get alerts and updates to what I'm posting. So you don't have to go dig for it. It will send you links directly, which is really nice.